Thank you for viewing our presentation today. My name is Julie Fryer.
Chelana Foley.
Willie Matthews.
And Wynn Alford.
Our group presentation is a problem-based learning assignment from our educational psychology class. It is a case analysis consisting of an intern teacher and a supervising teacher. In the assignment, we were supposed to identify the problem and create a solution. On our first slide, you'll see two pictures. These pictures represent the beginning of our case analysis. After reading the case study, our group decided to brainstorm and use a concept map to begin dissecting the case. As you can see, we began with the general idea of Mike having poor classroom management. After discussion, we were able to narrow our focus to 4 areas that Mike needed to improve. These are importance of establishing meaningful relationships with students, rules and routines, culturally relevant lessons, and differentiated instruction. Initially, we stated that these problems stems from Mike's inadequacy. However, after more discussion, we determined that Mike's problem area was related to the urban school environment and his lack of training provided from his university. In the case of Mike, he portrays the negative outcomes in the classroom when adjusting to the needs of urban learners is not part of a teacher preparation program.
As we began looking at the characteristics, looking at the importance of relationships, the old saying goes that in building anything, you want to have a good foundation. In the academic setting, that foundation is relationships. Relationship building is essential to developing the foundation of learning in a classroom. It's necessary to understand that all students are not alike and that their needs are required. It is necessary to understand that all students are not alike and that their needs often require different means of establishing social relationships with classmates and other individuals. Education is based on 3 things: rigor, relevancy, and relationship. I found through my experience and research that the relationship is the most important as it contributes to the success of each of the other 2 aspects. Without relationship, you would be unable to implement effective classroom management, and lastly, you could not determine the learning ability of the student in order to differentiate and create rigor in your lessons. The racial and cultural makeup of this class requires the ability to understand the factors that each culture of student embraces and the knowledge of how to reach them and build a positive relationship. Therefore, in urban settings, it is advantageous to understand how students think, act, and respond according to their cultural background. As we continue to look in relationships, looking at the aspect of students' sense of belonging, relationships encompass relevancy, which creates connections to the students' lives and establishes a sense of belonging for the student. If when Michael used the illustration of using punctuation marks and incorporated a scenario or situation that the students could have identified with as to why it was important or the difference it makes to their use, they would have been able to establish the importance of the grammatical rules. The more relevant it is to a student, the more likely it is that they'll be able to apply it and relate it to their cultural knowledge and their experiences in their school life. When students can associate practices from assignments to responsibilities and situations that they encounter, they understand the necessity of the work, and it helps to equip them and make them more important decisions. Students receiving constructive attention feel a sense of belonging. When they receive gestures of kindness and concern from the teacher, it creates a feeling of competence. It's that recognition and acknowledgement of the student's understanding of the high expectations and what the teacher exhibits. Students receiving constructive attention feel a sense of belonging. Gestures of kindness and concern from the teacher create a feeling of competence because the recognition and acknowledgement of the student's understanding of the high expectations exhibits the significance of success and failure. Teachers capable of creating this type of environment between themselves and their students are apt to promoting a mirroring relationship amongst the students to form a greater bond. Students benefit from a social climate that demonstrates the mutual respect of each other's opinions, from acceptance of the fact that you can agree to disagree, from recognizing that different perspectives offer a new degree of insight, and from efforts to create dynamic classroom environments. And lastly, looking at students' needs and motivation. In order to better understand why students' achievement is lower in urban schools, researchers and teachers must look beyond the classroom and investigate the impact of variables such as family, community, and socioeconomic status. Students have the need for food and shelter and clothing first, and then the need for social acceptance. And when those needs are met, focus is placed on achievements of other kinds, implying that when their essential needs are not met, they cannot learn, or have such significant barriers to learning that they are unsuccessful at school. Teachers must establish expectancy with students as to what they are requiring in their conduct and the appropriate consequences that should be identified that will result if the expectations aren't met. Students need to be able to recognize that the individual is most influential to their future, in which they spend the greatest portion of their day is concerned about them and care about their well-being. In this situation, the supervisor teacher, Ms. Rutner, being the primary teacher, already has this protocol in place, whereas Michael, new to the classroom and only having 1 week exposure to the students, could not establish such a rapport with the students that would give him the insight to make those types of judgments and take charge of the class. Teachers that develop these kinds of relationships are able to detect when students are lacking in needs outside the classroom. Their performance often ends to decline, or they show their signs such as sleeping in class, absenteeism, or aggression. Hence, there is importance for students to know that their teacher has a welcoming demeanor and where respect is evident.
Establish rules and routines. Planning includes thorough knowledge of the subject matter, ability to teach the objectives and skills, manage the classroom activities and strategies, having an effective plan in place in order for students to follow the rules, routines, and consequences of the classroom. In the case study, Mike showed to have a thorough knowledge of the subject matter. He did have an ability to teach the objectives and the skills. But when it came to managing the classroom activities and strategies, he did not have an effective plan in place in order for students to follow. This caused chaos in the classroom. Classroom structure. Organize the physical space, pleasant, friendly environment. Set up the learning environment for learning, positive and supportive. In the case study, Mike, being the intern, was not in his own physical space. His classroom belonged to the teacher that was in the classroom, and those were her students. He did not take out the time to develop a rapport with the students, get to know his students, and see if the physical space, the way the students were sitting, where they were sitting, was beneficial for his classroom setting. Safe learning environment. Important for teachers to understand the wants and needs of their students and establish a bond that in return will help their students to feel secure in their learning environments. Rules in the classroom allow for structure in a safe learning environment. According to Woolfolk, seeking students' input regarding the rules that are designed and implemented in the classroom encourages a sense of community and contributes to a positive learning environment. For Mike, the safe learning environment, he did not go into the classroom and establish rules or consequences. Therefore, the classroom, instead of being productive and successful once again during the learning process, the kids took advantage of this, and they didn't know what his expectations were. This was an error in Mike's part. Classroom management. Effective classroom management ensures that the teacher provides an orderly, organized, and well-managed classroom in order to produce positive students' outcome. The case study did show that Mike did try to have a classroom management. He tried to teach the class in an orderly and organized and well-managed way. But due to his class and him not knowing his students, this backfired on him. And instead of once again having a positive and successful learning experience, the classroom turned into a chaotic. Time management. In order for students to achieve success, teachers must manage their instructional time effectively. This will help students and give them the greatest advantage to learn and develop their full potential. Teachers must also maximize students' time, keep the students on task in order to achieve student success. In the case study, we saw that Mike, he lost track of time due to the chaos and the interruptions in his classroom, and he lacked the time management skill he needed in order to have a successful classroom. Classroom modeling. Modeling emphasizes how a skill or objective is accomplished. It is important for the teacher to introduce the skill or the objective the students are to learn by modeling or demonstrating for the students. This will help the students to better understand what they are learning. Mike should have provided examples. He should have asked the questions to his students to see if they were engaged and thinking about the subject. Where did Mike go wrong? He assumed that the class was able to follow his directions that he had presented to the class. And because of the students that he was teaching, they were not. They were not engaged, they were not motivated, and they were not encouraged to meet his task that he had presented to the class. What was the mistake that Mike made in regards to classroom management? Mike did not establish proper protocol within the classroom, such as rules and routines, time management, and classroom modeling. It was evident that he lacked training and experience with the students he was teaching. How can teacher programs better prepare teachers to effectively incorporate classroom management strategies with different students from different environments? Teacher programs offer exposure to pre-service teachers to classroom management techniques. Pre-service teachers will be able to learn from urban supervising teachers culturally responsive practices that would aid them in teaching students in different environments.
Culturally relevant pedagogy. Many years ago, a Russian psychologist Vygotsky pointed out the idea that culture is a factor in cognitive development. Through this, he created the sociocultural theory, which states that children learn because of interactions with others in their culture. Assuming this is true, then teachers must create an environment where students can learn through their own experiences and culture. When teachers are aware of and understand cultures, then they can begin to create culturally relevant lessons. These improvements will in turn allow students to succeed academically. When looking at teachers, if you have someone who is merely multicultural, this can mean just knowledge of different cultures. However, a culturally responsive teacher understands both culture and individuals and uses this understanding in practice. The link comes when teachers can become culturally responsive and address both individual and cultural needs. Then we have student achievement, which increases. In order to do this, teachers must actively engage themselves in understanding the students' community. Teachers must also understand how students view themselves beyond their community. This can be on a national or even global level. As teachers better understand the student's worldview, then all students can be included in the teaching process, be challenged academically, and can find relevant meaning in what they have learned. Mike failed because he did not know his students beyond superficial information. All he knew was ethnic makeup when other factors should have been examined, such as socioeconomic status, individual abilities, and how students use academics such as writing in their everyday lives. The university failed in their teacher preparation program because they did not train Mike or other teachers to be culturally responsive. Many times only a single multicultural class is used to prepare teachers, and this is not enough. Hands-on or real-life training is needed so teachers know how to actively push to better understand their students' culture.
Although the writing workshop Mike was teaching contained elements of differentiation by design, he was not implementing true differentiation in his instruction. Differentiation is more than a list of strategies. It's a response approach to instruction that requires teachers to examine their students as individuals, to demonstrate flexibility in matching instruction to the unique preferences and needs of the students in order to maximize their potential. Several key factors must be considered when planning for differentiation. The teacher must seek to truly know the students on a deeper level by actively listening to them, by accepting and appreciating their individual cultural backgrounds, and by continuously holding them to a higher standard of learning. The teacher must demonstrate to the student a vested commitment for the student's success by ensuring that the student is provided the physical and emotional resources to succeed. A learning community must be established demonstrating respect and support for the members. Assessment must be used to drive and inform instruction using pre-assessment data to understand individual starting points and ongoing assessment to monitor progress and to look for problem areas. The teacher must be able to demonstrate flexibility with routines by allowing different seating arrangements to accommodate individual or small group work, using a variety of instruction models including individual, small group, and whole class instruction, and by use of flexible grouping of students. And a differentiated classroom is one where there's shared responsibility for teaching and learning by the group, as evidenced by the teacher seeking students' perspectives and input in establishing and continually monitoring classroom guidelines, rules, and routines. Mike, in our case, lacked the necessary skills to effectively differentiate instruction. There are several aspects of differentiation to consider. Mike was made aware that the class contained a wide range of ability levels. However, he had not planned for the variations in learner readiness. Numerous behaviors were exhibited that could be attributed to the students. Kevin and Juan, for example, not having a clear understanding of how to begin the writing process, or other students not having the skills to conference appropriately about their work with peers. The students who were independent and more proficient writers were frustrated by Mike's inability to conference with them in a timely manner. Therefore, the entire class was working from a point of frustration and inadequacy rather than a point of understanding and success. In an effort to keep the students in our case study actively engaged in learning and to reduce the number of disruptive off-task behaviors that were a constant distraction, Mike should ensure that individual learner interests were part of the planning for differentiation. By accommodating varying interests, Mike is increasing student engagement as the students are sharing responsibility for their own learning through individual decision making. Tomlinson, 2009, found that differentiating instruction to accommodate students' ideas or pursuits increases their motivation to learn. A key principle of differentiated instruction is the belief that every child is unique and has an individual learning style and preference. Tomlinson, 2009, suggested that teachers should become students of their students, studying each student to determine their individual needs in order to design the best instructional strategy to reach that student. Student learning profiles are influenced by culture, gender, learning preferences, and types of intelligence, as well as combinations of those factors. Teachers must carefully study their students, as well as seek student inputs and perspectives about what factors contribute to their learning and what factors seem to interfere. Mike's college prep program did not prepare him to differentiate instruction for the urban student. He was not prepared to assess and accommodate differences in learner readiness, learner interest, and learner needs or preferences. He lacked essential skills needed to become knowledgeable about his students, to understand their perspectives and backgrounds. Without adequate training to truly understand his students' ability levels, interests, and learning needs, Mike was unable to differentiate instruction successfully to meet the needs of the urban middle school student.
In our case study, Mike lacked skills necessary to effectively teach urban students. However, Mike's personal failure is merely a symptom of a much larger systematic failure of university teacher prep programs to adequately prepare teaching candidates for success in diverse urban settings. Research indicates that while the student population in the United States is becoming more diverse with ethnic minorities increasing, teaching candidates continue to be predominantly white. If teaching candidates are going to be equipped to meet the diverse needs of urban students, colleges and universities must significantly revise teacher prep programs to address the substantial cultural and ethnic components of teaching urban learners. Therefore, we propose a change in teacher education programs to include an immersion or field experience component in diverse urban settings.
Our group researched 2 successful college prep programs which are committed to preparing pre-service teachers for success in urban settings. The Ball State Urban Semester is an immersion program offered during the junior year of the teacher prep program at Ball State University, as the university partnered with a large metropolitan school system nearby. Pre-service teachers receive their college coursework for 1 semester while working full-time in an urban school. University professors travel to the urban schools to teach and supervise the college students. The pre-service teachers are expected to participate in all aspects of teaching, such as lesson planning, creating materials, classroom management, parent conferences, and teacher in-service opportunities. The candidates are able to immediately apply knowledge about their methods classes and seek feedback from experienced teachers as well as their university professors. Most importantly, the pre-service teachers learn about children in urban settings and how to reach them most effectively. Another promising program is a project known as Higher Education Partnership, HEP. Pre-service teachers are trained in a collaborative program between 6 higher education institutions in Ohio and the Columbus, Ohio City Schools. Candidates are required to participate in a community mapping activity to get a better picture of where their children live and to encourage them to think of ways they can create links between school and community. Connecting to the children, to their homes, and to the community in which they live validates the importance of developing relationships and provides invaluable insight into what motivates the students and increases their sense of belonging. It also provides necessary input to allow for effective differentiation in the classroom.
Components of immersion programs. A key component to an effective college prep diversity program is teaching pre-service teachers to reflect on their own beliefs and assumptions about cultural identity. This reflection is imperative to uncover bias and prejudices which may be impeding their ability to effectively reach culturally diverse populations. Pre-service teachers were required to reflect before, during, and after their immersion experience or field experience, and those reflections demonstrated growth and appreciation for cultural differences over the course of time. Instead of being colorblind, candidates came to respect and appreciate multicultural perspectives. Candidates in college prep diversity programs also benefit from experiences that require them to get to know their students better. Building relationships was an important part of both the urban semester and the Higher Education Partnership, HEP. Candidates who participated in the urban semester were taught the importance of using culturally responsive materials in order to establish relevance to the content. The pre-service teachers were exposed to multicultural literature and content material in all classes. Materials were examined by the candidates for bias and stereotypes. This practice was beneficial for both the students and for the pre-service teachers as it broadened their understanding of contributions from people of diverse backgrounds while encouraging relatedness to the content. Another significant benefit of the urban semester was the exposure of pre-service teachers to classroom management techniques and differentiation strategies unique to the urban student. Pre-service teachers learned from their urban supervising teachers culturally responsive practices. The field experience allowed candidates to observe the veteran urban teachers establishing rules and routines as well as implementing differentiated instruction in a real-world situation rather than a university classroom discussion.
The Urban Semester, the Higher Education Partnership, and similar programs should become models for teacher prep programs to better prepare teacher candidates for serving in urban or diverse settings. Research demonstrates that the candidates completing these programs have more positive views of diversity and multiculturalism, more respect for diverse populations, and more understanding of the complexities of urban learners, their families, and their communities. They are more prepared to develop in-depth knowledge of their students in order to develop relationships, to motivate them, and to differentiate instruction based on their readiness, their interest, or their learning preferences. They understand the importance of helping their students establish relatedness to the content and are able to seek out culturally responsive materials and information. The candidates have experience seeing rules and routines established and implemented in order to facilitate effective classroom management in the urban setting. They are, therefore, better prepared for the unique challenges of the urban student and are more likely to be culturally responsive, effective educators if they ultimately accept their teaching positions in urban schools.
We've listed our references on the next 3 slides. Thank you for viewing our presentation, and we hope that you gained an insight into our perspective on what the problem was and what the solution was.